All right, so we're going to be having a look at the Console Shaper plugin. Now this is a brand new type of plugin that Presonus have released for Studio One called Mix Effects plugins. And the basic premise of the Mix Effects plugins is that they're actually going down and tapping into your audio engine at the core level. So it's not necessarily an insert that's applied on a per channel basis. What this is actually allowing to happen is that in the background is that the channels are allowed to talk to each other in ways that weren't possible before with modern DAWs. So to start off with, we're going to have a quick listen to what we've got here, and I'm just going to disengage the mix effects over here. And let's have a quick overview of what we're listening to here. So we've got the same drum tracks from the previous session. Okay, so I've got my snare going out here to the open air reverb, just to give it a little bit more bite. And then I've got all my drums are grouped and they're going out to a common bus here. And then we've got the Console Shaper on the actual bus. Because what happens with the Console Shaper is the Console Shaper actually folds down to any tracks that are routed to it. So you can see here that all of these drum tracks are routed to the drums bus in addition to this reverb here. So now all of these tracks that are routed to this bus are being affected by this Console Shaper plugin. Now there's a couple things to take into consideration here. First of all is we have a global setting on this Console Shaper, and this will affect things like drive, noise, and crosstalk for all of the tracks that are routed to this bus. So it's kind of up to us to get our gain staging in place and make sure that we're hitting the Console Shaper at an appropriate level. Obviously tracks that have low gain, where we can see here some of these ones that the waveforms aren't that visible, they're going to require the Console Shaper to be pushed harder in order to hear an audible effect. For tracks that are pushed a lot louder, it's going to take a lot less drive for these tracks to hit the Console Shaper and have their sound affected by the Console Shaper plugin. All right, so enough talk. Let's go ahead and let's instantiate this and let's have a listen. So first off, as a reminder, this is what we're sounding like. Let's turn it off. Huge difference. And just to prove to you that I don't have anything else on this, let's just go ahead and open up my mixer. So all I've got here is the reverb, the open air reverb with an EQ after it, but these tracks are actually completely raw. So what we're doing is we're changing them at the source level. Let's have a quick listen to that again. Start off with everything bypassed. Pretty amazing stuff. So let's have a really quick look at the different parameters we have here. And I'm just going to solo out the kick so that we can really hear what's going on. So the first thing that we have is we've got our drive, and this is where everything's hitting it. And we can adjust this. And like I said, this is global, and it's affecting all of the tracks that are routed to it. So I'm going to back off my drive, and let's start pushing this, and let's listen to what happens to the kick drum. You hear that? Now another thing we have here is we've got an option to add some noise. And we've also got crosstalk. So you may have noticed here that that's actually not bleed. This is actually the crosstalk that's picking up from the other channels that are also sent to the same bus. Let me dial this up. We can essentially hear the rest of the kit now, even though this is soloed. Let's kill the crosstalk. Now what happens when you have the crosstalk enabled is you have all sorts of phasing going on and these non-linearities that are happening that just happen to sound really good when you add them up together. So let's dial this off a bit here. Just going to bring the drive up just till I hear it affect the kick. Pull it down a bit. Let's bring it in again. Now we can also push this because we have these drums linked with a VCA fader. We can basically come up with a setting that works for us, something conservative, somewhere around there. And then depending on how hard we push these tracks into this bus, we'll start to saturate our drums. So if I bring this up to, let's say, something like 12, I'll bring this down a bit. You can hear it there. You can bring this down a bit. Huge difference. Now, I will say with the console shaper, a little goes a long way. It's very easy to get carried away with this, but this is an incredibly powerful tool. And as you can see, I don't have any plugins on this session whatsoever. I'm just basically dialing in a sound that works for the program material. And we're able to take our tracks from kind of sterile sounding to having instant character and mojo before we've even started our mix. So that's why, in my personal opinion, I think it's best to start a new mix with a blank slate, gain stage all of your material properly, get the console shaper going from the very beginning before you even start to EQ or compress anything. Let's have a quick listen to this on an 808 kit. Now here I've got a session courtesy of my good friend Paul Drew, who's made this session available for me for this demonstration. So let's just go ahead and let's just go to our main outs, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up the console shaper here. And let's go ahead and activate this, and let's see how it sounds just brought up in its default setting. Let's go ahead and start with it off. Maybe somewhere here. Let's bring up the drive a bit. I can hear it start to saturate, so we'll pull it back a little bit. I want to leave some headroom for this. There we go. Big difference. Huge difference there. Just going to loop this particular selection. And we want to set it so it's got enough headroom that it's not going to saturate too much on that point. All right, so you can hear even on a pre-existing session that's been mixed, this is making a huge difference. Now, having said that, I'd always recommend starting off with this at the beginning. And what I would probably do if I was remixing this with the console shaper is I would definitely break out all these tracks into different subgroups, send each of those subgroups to a bus, and have a console shaper with specific settings affecting those buses. And then I might have something on the main mix as well. Anyways, it's been a pleasure showing you guys these new features that we have available in 3.2. And I hope you guys got something from this, and we'll talk to you later. Cheers.